back with another video. We have a major issue that we need to discuss about Gen Z and people leaving their work in massive numbers. There has been a lot of studies and statistics that have been coming out at the end of 2020 all the way till 2024 about people in general, and Gen Z of course, not wanting to work the traditional 40-hour week, being way more picky with their job, quitting their work, quiet quitting, trends like quiet quitting and being lazy at their jobs coming out on TikTok and short form content platform. Massive waves of people just quitting their jobs right after the lockdown. Employers not being wanting to hire Gen Zers because they call them lazy. Prices skyrocketing, the dollar getting devalued. Basically everything coming into a collapse between Gen Z and employers. What is happening? First of all, let's start with the general stereotype of boomers or the older generations calling Gen Z lazy. Is this true? It goes both ways. Well, the stereotype comes from that Gen Z is born into a generation with much more freedom, much more travel freedom in much more developed countries. Technology is up. Everything is basically very, very advanced for their generations. And also there's also the stereotype that they're getting spoon-fed by their parents, which is somewhat true. But is this really what's keeping Gen Z lazy or not cooperative with their employers or entire work-life balance? Some stats even go as far to say that 83% of Gen Zers don't want to work on site and want to work remote or hybrid. Others and above 70% prefer their work-life balance instead of their salary, which is big because in their older generations, many people, immigrants or not immigrant families from lower income class would take any job. They usually would get married at a very young age. They would start a family at a younger age and they would have to provide for that family. So even if they had to go to the caves to mine for coal or pick up dangerous jobs like work at oil rigs, they would take them because they had to provide for their family. Money was everything. Obviously the norm back then in society was also the more money you have the better, but nowadays it's more like if you have free time to actually spend your money or who gets to have more freedom with their job. So is Gen Z lazy or just smart? So long story short, the internet changed everything. I mean, TikTok and specifically short form content right at the pandemic where it blew up and lots of stats started coming out about house prices are way up, wages are way down and haven't kept up with inflation. Inflation's outpacing wages. Gen Z sees all of these, and not just Gen Z, people that just do not like working, and other generations as well, see these stats and just get demotivated. If the trend continues like this, then what's the point of just choosing a job where you work there and stay loyal to your employer for 40 years just to get a 3% annual raise, even though inflation's up 5% in the last years? Not only that, the big wave of internet, people started seeing salary transparencies, exposing bad bosses, also many side hustle options where they can actually do not have to work or they can work less and they focus on another side hustle. You know, why work 60 hours a week when you can just flip sneakers or edit videos online for $500 a day? Also many hashtags started coming out and trends started coming out about quiet quitting and overemployed, about people posting there how quiet quitting, how they just don't go to work the bare minimum just to not get fired, because people realize, okay, if I just go to work and do the bare minimum and I don't get fired, I don't have to do much, because if I just go to work and do double the effort, I'm still gonna get paid the same, the guy that goes to work and does the bare minimum. So why not do the bare minimum as well? That was the thinking of many people in Gen Z. So not only the internet, I mean, you gotta understand, like from the pandemic, where from 2020 to 2022, everything was forced shut. People just didn't go outside, they were just staying home. They had way more free time for the first time ever. They had way more free time. They could just work remote and kick their legs up and not do much for the first time. And people got used to that. People were like, okay, and not only just work, from school or college as well. And people were like, okay, we want to keep that environment because effort is up, productivity is also up, but we also don't have to do much more, even though we get more done at home. 2022 opened back up again. People started going back to their job. Many people didn't like that. So a massive wave of big resignation started coming in 2022 and 2023, where a massive amounts of adults started actually quitting their job or resigning their job because they just have come to the realization in those 2 years of the pandemic, because they actually had a time to take a step back and see, hey, life can actually be good and I can actually kick back and do way more work with way less effort. Why go on site in a depressive work environment where people hate me, where my boss hates me, and do the same amount in a place I hate. So people started being way more picky with their job, especially Gen Zers. So that's why another thing that reinforces the stereotype that Gen Zers are lazy. And just basically after 2022 and 2023, many people started realizing it's just not worth it to go 40 years in a single job with an employer and people that hate me and then basically die. And people started coming to the realization of that and just didn't want to work anymore. But wait, we gotta go back. Everything started in the 1940s. People started demanding we go down from the 44-hour week to the 40-hour week because many people would argue, okay, productivity is gonna increase, we're gonna have more time, the companies are also gonna get more revenue because we're gonna increase the productivity, and it's gonna be way better for us because we're also gonna have more time with our kids and our family. So it's a win-win, right? Eventually it got signed into office and it actually became a law to decrease the 44-hour week to a 40-hour week. And what did we see? From 1948 to 1979, we saw a big boom in wages and productivity. Productivity was around above 100% and wages were above 90%. The phenomenon here is that productivity and wages kept up together. Everything was winning, everyone was winning. I mean, you can see all the big companies around you were mostly created between 1948 and 1979 because that was basically the golden era, the big boom era. Then what happened? Post 1980, unions crashed, jobs were outsourced, meaning that many employers and many companies started finding out, okay, we can outsource the jobs, whatever jobs, they can outsource them to the Philippines or any third world countries back then. And for cheaper pay, for way less laws that were protecting the workers, they can have these citizens work for $2 an hour, 16-hour days, and get 3 times the productivity. So many jobs were outsourced, making jobs more scarce. Hence, the wages started actually decreasing and actually getting plummeted. So many companies were actually started doing this, and that's why also many car companies moved abroad. Not only just have way cheaper wages, basically overwork them, and to also make matters worse, since jobs were outsourced, wages went down, productivity went down, and basically it messed up the entirety of Europe and US when companies started doing that to basically increase their profit and decrease their spending on workers and many other stuff. Unions actually started getting crushed because many laws got signed into office during the Reagan era, during the 80s, and also I believe during the 90s. And because of these laws, unions actually went down from 30% to 10%, meaning that workers had to lay way less leverage to demand higher raise and higher pay and better working conditions. That leverage went into the companies, which meant that they could do whatever they wanted with workers and not get backlash from them. The result of all this was basically from 1979 to 2023, wages increased by around 17% and productivity increased by 60%. So inflation was outpacing wages, productivity was outpacing wages, cost of living was outpacing wages, house market was outpacing wages, everything was outpacing the wages. That is an unsustainable model for any society to keep up. Other than that, minimum wage froze to $7.25, which is basically an unlivable wage in any state and any country in the West. We even calculated how much the wages kept up with productivity, and that would have been $25 an hour as a minimum wage if wages kept up with productivity just like it did in the last 30 years. Obviously, since short-form content and all the internet and all this, and people were getting more access to the internet and in the West and the East world basically, many people, but mostly Gen Z, started seeing on this and started rejecting burnout, started rejecting underpaid jobs, started rejecting bad bosses and toxic work environments, basically had a very low tolerance on how they're gonna be treated on any job. And many people started realizing that it's just not worth it to work a 40-hour work week or a 60-hour work week for 40 years until their retirement for 10 years and then die. Realize there's way more to life than just working and not doing anything, living the same day over and over and over again. Many studies started seeing that Gen Z is focusing on mental health and flexibility and work-life balance instead of the salary, just like I talked before. And obviously in 2023 to 2024, many influencers started to explode. Because of influencers like that, people started becoming way more literate about money, how franchising banking works, how money has no value anymore ever since 1979. Many things, many conspiracies, whatever you want to get into, basically how just you don't need to get a job and work that for your entire life. There's more to life, and you can escape the rat race with, the side gigs, this business opportunities, getting into sales, getting into whatever you want to call it. And people actually got rich from that. So that basically added more fuel to the fire of how people do not want to work their jobs, and that there actually is a way out and a way to do something else. Even though it's harder, high income skills, whatever you want to call them, even though, yeah, obviously it's not the best and it's gonna take you a while to master these high income skills, you're gonna become valuable to every single company, and not maybe to every single company, you're gonna become valuable to many people, many clients who are gonna want to pay you on retainer, and you're gonna be getting paid way more, have way more time, and this high income skill is gonna keep you alive for the rest of your life. I myself got inspired by Andrew Tate, and I actually, maybe I didn't learn from him, but I learned from other learning about high income skills and how I can actually escape the rat race, because I just do not want to work a job for the rest of my life. And it's not because, oh, I didn't want a boss. I wanted the free time. I want to travel wherever I want. And if I want to, let's say, become a teacher or whatever, getting paid 48K a year here in Germany was just not gonna grant me the freedom to travel to Japan, for example, if I wanted to. I mean, rent alone here is 1,500, so you somewhat kind of have to do that if you actually want to have some freedom of your life. And actually, I mean, thank God it actually succeeded. I had my agency, I made nearly six figures from that. Then I got into trading, I made way over six figures in trading. And the strategy that I use in trading is gonna feed me for the rest of my life, because the markets are not gonna go anywhere. Even if I get canceled, even if I get banned from anywhere, even if I become like the most FBI hired criminal, whatever you wanna call it, the markets are still gonna be there. I'm still gonna be profitable in day trading the markets. And if I get shut down, I mean, the only way for me to stop day trading and my side gig to not work is if markets go to zero and become untradeable. But by then, for that to happen, we need to be in a zombie apocalypse, and we're gonna have way bigger problems than, day trading and making profit off of the market. So is Gen Z lazy? Yes. Are they worse off than their previous generation for the first time probably ever? Also yes. Internet changed everything. The question is if the companies are actually going to elaborate, or if they're going to keep their same policies and their same stance on wages and how they're going to treat people. That is the big difference. I mean, internet is going to basically, it's unmarked territory. I mean, who knows what's going to happen in 10, 20 years in the job market, or AI right now replacing many jobs, and seeing what everything that goes for that. I have people that are working for me, and I don't never ask them for the degree. For me, the main important thing is experience. Can you provide? Show me results that you have done before. Okay, that's perfect. I mean, let's see. I mean, if wages keep getting outpaced by inflation, the dollar getting devalued, the euro getting devalued, and many Western countries just not pivoting to the interest of what many people want, I mean, we'll see what happens. I mean, productivity keeps going up, but wages are just not catching up. What I would recommend is to learn a high income skill. I did it, worked out for me. Maybe it's not gonna work out for you. Who knows? It depends on the person, how much work you put in. But if you learn a high income skill, you're gonna thank yourself later, because it's just being good at another sport. But that could also be another high income skill. I mean, you can be the next good boxer, or the next MMA fighter, or the next fucking judo, basketball. I mean, you can do that as a side income as well. Yeah, it's hard, yeah, it's this, but you can do it. I mean, Floyd Mayweather, the dude is one of the best boxers of this generation, and this guy cannot freaking read. You know that, right? I mean, this guy can barely read, but he's still 50-0, like borderline billionaire. If he can do it, why can't you? People have done way worse things and way harder things. So you mastering a side gig and mastering a business, it's not gonna be the hardest thing. Be more creative. Think for yourself. Your family, your future children are really gonna thank you when inflation has gotten out of control. Have something valuable, so you can always, so if you get dropped butt naked in whatever Western country, you can always rebuild.